often uses about Fox News, was over this, I mean, all this, everyone here knows about it, was, over a deal I'd done with Obama that Trump wanted to renege on. Anyway, and we had a huge, blazing row where I basically said, you've got to stick to your word, and Trump said, come on, Malcolm, you're a businessman, you must have reneged on deals. I said, no, no.
In this video, we're about to watch something you don't see every day. A former prime minister openly admitting how he managed to handle Donald Trump, while most world leaders completely failed. Malcolm Turnbull doesn't just talk policy here. He actually breaks down the strategy, calls Trump out for being a blustering bully, and even gets a few laughs from the audience as he does it. But underneath the humor is a serious lesson about power, respect, and how to deal with someone like Trump without losing your ground. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.
Australians forget that in the imperial capital they regard deference as their due. So if you go to Washington, or indeed to Beijing, or in the old days to London, and you grovel and carry on and suck up, they just say, oh, that's great. Is it time for the next sycophant? Surely he's had his 10 minutes of sucking up. It is crazy. You win no respect at all. And of course with Trump, who is like the ultimate narcissistic, blustering bully, it is the worst possible thing to do. Now, I was very lucky with Trump in this sense that my first engagement with him, or enragement with him, to use a fabulous Joe Stiglitz word that he often uses about Fox News, was over this, I mean, all this, everyone here knows about it, was, over a deal I'd done with Obama that Trump wanted to renege on. Anyway, and we had a huge, blazing row where I basically said, you've got to stick to your word, and Trump said, come on, Malcolm, you're a businessman, you must have reneged on deals. I said, no, no. No, he did. That's exactly what he said. I said, no. I said, ask your friends. We've got friends in common. My reputation is being a man of my word. I've got lots of other bad things people say about me, but people generally haven't said that I'm untrustworthy in that regard. So and I've made this point to Trump anyway, and so the conversation began, no way, Jose, and ended up, yes, I hate you. Yes, but I hate you, basically. So he did. He said the call was worse than the one he had with Putin. Although, as I later learnt when I saw them together, he really loves Putin. So it's a bit complex. But the point is, by standing up to Trump and not, doing what they were, American side were back channeling us to not raise the issue, I won his respect and I was able to get some very good outcomes for Australia. And so, you read all this stuff, particularly in the Murdoch press, about how you've got to have an ambassador that sucks up to Trump and you've got to flatter him. That is all bullshit, believe me. I mean, I promise you, there are a lot of leaders at the time Trump came in who did exactly that and they got nothing. The only way to deal with bullies is to stand up to them. And the thing that an Australian Prime Minister knows when they go into a room with an American president is that they're the one person in the White House the president can't fire. So all his staff, they've got to be careful because the boss can go, oh, I'm sick of you telling me what I don't want to hear, you're out. Okay, and that's what Trump does. But if you're the Prime Minister of Australia, the only people that can sack you are your colleagues back home, which, of course, I'm very familiar with the process. But so it's really important. It's really important for Australia to engage, from a position of strength. I mean, there is a complexity there. I'll just conclude on this point that Albanese has to recognise, and I had to too, that the sort of right-wing media ecosystem here, mostly News Corp, but not entirely, is basically Trump is now the central sort of avatar of that universe, and so if disagreement between an Australian Prime Minister and Donald Trump, they will side with Trump.
Yeah.
So, but that is no reason to do anything other than be absolutely strong, play a straight bat, and of course, needless to say, the last thing. Trump got really bad press when he had this tantrum with me. It really did not help him, and I think he was very conscious of that. As far as our ambassador, the Australian government appoints the Australian ambassador to Washington, and just like the American government appoints the American ambassador to Canberra, and the idea that you'd be taking directions from the White House as to who our ambassador should be. I mean, declaring an ambassador persona non grata is a big deal. That's the kind of thing you do to the Russians when they're spying on you or something. So that isn't going to happen. So, Albo, whatever people think of Kevin, and, I've had an up and down relationship with him. We're currently in love again, but it's been patchy, I'd have to say. But the Albanese should stick with Rudd, and he'll and just be very strong and play a straight bat.
What Malcolm Turnbull showed us here is something a lot of world leaders still don't seem to understand. You don't win Donald Trump's respect by bowing down or flattering him. You win it by standing firm, by refusing to bend, and by showing that you're not afraid to push back when he tries to bully his way through. That's exactly what Turnbull did, and it forced Trump into a corner where he had no choice but to follow through on a deal he desperately wanted to walk away from. And let's be honest, too many leaders, then and now, are still acting like Trump's approval is worth more than their own country's dignity. Canada stood up to him, Greenland pushed back, and now Australia's former Prime Minister has laid out the strategy in plain terms. Strength earns respect, weakness gets you nothing. More leaders should take note, because Trump isn't just a politician. He's a test of how much principle and backbone you really have. That's the lesson here. Don't just shake his hand and smile for the cameras. Play it straight, stand your ground, and don't let yourself be used as a prop in his endless show. Stay sharp, stay informed, and as always, thanks for tuning in.